Speaking of the Steelers, you've been in this league. You were in this league a long time, played for a lot of different head coaches. I think that there are two very successful head coaches right now in the NFL that have to be wondering how important this season is for them. And one of them is Mike Tomlin. Look, if Mike Tomlin is fired tomorrow, he'll have a job within 24 hours. Sure. That's how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is. But the sticking point is, for him in Pittsburgh, you haven't won a playoff game since before the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes. Their last playoff win was after the 2016 season in January of 2017 against, of all teams, the Kansas City Chiefs. Since the Chiefs introduced the world to number 15, the Steelers have 0 playoff wins. How important is it in your mind for Mike Tomlin to win 1 or even 2 playoff games this year to keep his job?
Listen, you talk to any player that's played for him or played against him, and just like the respect level for Mike Tomlin specifically is so high for that guy. And here's the ironic thing is that if he doesn't maintain that competitiveness where he hasn't gone below 500, and one year they just and in 1 year they go 3-13, and they get a top 5 pick, and they get a top quarterback prospect, and then they work their way back. Most likely they've won a playoff game. We're not talking about this in the same context, but since he is such a competitor and has the backing of a stable organization, they value winning above all else and consistency above all else. And the irony is, if they had just we're not talking tanking, but if they had just had a really down year and they gotten the problem is when you are winning like that, you don't pick in the top 10. You don't get the highest caliber potential quarterbacks, which we acknowledge is the most important position in this game, to pick from. And so you're hoping maybe a free agent is disgruntled, but that this is not the NBA. It doesn't happen as much, even though it's happening a little more. And so you're left with Mason Rudolph. You're left with Kenny Pickett. You're left with
Duck Hodges,
Russell Wilson, the tatters of Russell Wilson,
Landry Jones.
Yeah. So you go down the list, and so that is a future of his own making, but it's like a curse. It's a curse of I don't want to feel that feeling of being a losing team in the regular season. We're a tough-nosed city. We're a tough-nosed organization. We're going to try to win at all costs. But in this game, the value is in having a top 10, top 5 quarterback that you pick, that you cultivate, and that ends up working out because we know that's kind of a dart throw in itself as far as talent evaluation. Right. But you get him cheap on a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option. They haven't had that. Since Ben Roethlisberger left, we go down the list. They haven't had a signal caller. So the point I'm trying to make is it is really funny and ironic that he's in this position because the seat is warm now. We can talk about the success, the accomplishment of the record that he's had, but not winning a playoff game. Because you don't have a stud signal caller to kind of carry you over the edge, it ultimately is how you're going to be defined. That record, his overall record will be, when he gets inducted to the Hall of Fame, will go beside his name and we'll give him all the respect that he deserves. But in this moment, competing with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and the like, to me is more important because they've got such a winning culture that's kind of held him back just from a positioning and a talent acquisition phase.
The reason I bring this up is because Bill Cowher himself, who was, once the head coach of the Steelers, who, by the way, brought 2 different quarterbacks to the Super Bowl, Neil O'Donnell and Ben Roethlisberger, he famously said, I don't think any coach should be around after 10 years because the message, no matter how good the message is, and no matter how good you are at doing it, it tends to wear out and people get tired of hearing it. And the reason I phrase this way with the Steelers is you need to understand how unusual it is for the Steelers to change coaches. And this is my favorite football, non-football stat of all time. Yeah. Since 1970, we've had 3 Steelers head coaches, Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. Over that same time frame, we've had 5 popes. Okay? Popes can hold on to that job until they're dead if they want to, okay? Until their mortal coil goes. And the Steelers are less likely to make a change at head coach than you are to get a new pope inducted at Vatican City. So with all that said in mind, you said the seat is warm for Mike Tomlin. Knowing the historical resistance to change in Pittsburgh, what do you think it would really take for them to? Because again, Mike Tomlin will get a job within 48 hours of if he and Pittsburgh decide to part ways. What would it take for them to say it's time for a new pope in Pittsburgh?
I think if they don't win the division and Baltimore makes a run in the Super Bowl, having a division opponent who has now just surpassed you in their longevity, we'll talk about Harbaugh in a second, but
yes,
I think that would sting a lot. But I get the paradox here is, in the NFL, well, there is so much turnover, there is so much churn, but you'd rather you're known, and the known has been Mike Tomlin. And so you go into the wilderness, unless you've got a coordinator who's just this wonderkind that no one has heard of, that you are so ready for, that you've brought him up from a tadpole. Getting rid of Mike Tomlin, as you said, he might go to the Cleveland Browns the next year and start to kick your head in. And so I get the temptation of not wanting to let that go for what you know in-house. But even the Steelers, they have got to be really, really just anxious at this point. Again, the ownership has a winning mindset. They're entrenched in kind of their old ways. And then you talked about the only 3 head coaches. It would feel like, we talk about the white smoke when they pick a new pope. Imagining them doing a coaching search for the Pittsburgh Steelers is kind of something that is just hard to fathom at this point. But listen, I think Mike Tomlin, the Ravens have to win the division, beat the Steelers twice, and then go to the Super Bowl. And the Steelers have to really shoot themselves in the foot for the organization to ultimately make a change. It's going to take a lot, because the floor, again, we're talking about the floor in a league where getting into the dance, anything can happen. That to me, would be the onus for them to try to make a move. But even then, it would be so rare for that organization to do it. It would be hard to see.